I've come to visit IDS. I know IDS very well. We've been to their place in Manchester. I hadn't been here. Asked me if I'd come out to the Stockport area to have a look at and talk to them about various problems to do with drug addiction. We're doing some further reports on that, as well as gang violence, and they're all connected, so I thought I'd come up and talk to them today.
Do projects like this work?
Yes, they do. I think this is the key test for what has been a failing policy of the government, which is that the government doesn't really rate abstinence, and we think the big debate is abstinence versus maintenance. And for too long now, all the money's been spent on maintaining people who've got heroin habits, etc., on sort of methadone and substitute programs. And we think the best thing you can do for a drug addict is to work to get them off drugs and then keep them off drugs. That does two things. First of all, it saves their lives, and secondly, it cuts down the marketplace in the sense that if you have more people being cured, there are fewer people therefore likely to be having to make demand on drugs. So it's a better all-round policy, better for crime, better for the community, and better for the individuals concerned.
Does that mean them coming off on cold turkey?
Well, you have to first detox, is what they call first, where you get the addict essentially free of the drug that they've been on, and then rehabilitation is all about getting them to live a different sort of life from the one they've been living, which allows them to stay free of drugs. It's a big, big ask, and it's tough, and they have a lot of failure, and of course they come back on again, and they fall off, and they come back on, but you've got to persist till finally you get them. And we're the only country in Europe that has no real connection to proper abstinence. And the second part of it is that, of course, you know, if you look at Sweden and Holland, they have far lower numbers of addicts than we do proportionately, and they have abstinence programs embedded in their drugs policy.
Binge drinking is big in the news at the moment. What would you suggest as a way to solve those sort of problems?
Well, we recommended in our report, Breakthrough Britain, which people can get on our website, centreforsocialjustice.org, a big report, and part of that was on drug and alcohol. And the point about alcohol is very simple, that it has never been as cheap today relative to income than since the 1900s. And you can chart the price and consumption go hand in hand. The cheaper it is, the higher the consumption is. So that's the first thing. So we think that the price of alcohol does have to rise relative to income, and that affects particularly the at-risk groups like kids and alcoholics. And supermarkets have a moral obligation, I think, to stop selling their drink at such low levels and such low prices. The second bit is access. It's very difficult, but in estates and places where there are very high levels of at-risk groups, access to drink is very easy. A lot of the shopkeepers will say, well, it's all very well to say don't sell to under 18s, but then the gangs come back in and trash their shop and whatever. And I'm wondering whether it's time to think about separating alcohol from normal groceries, because of the problem that it has with these shops on the estates. So lots of issues, but access and price.
If you're wanting higher taxes on alcohol, isn't that going to destroy the off-licence trade, pub trade, supermarket trade, especially in the south of England, where people can just go booze cruising across to France, where it's a lot cheaper already?
Well, the biggest problem, of course, is access, and you'll find that the supermarkets are critical to that. It's not really going to damage off-licence trade because they have to compete with the supermarkets, so they have to lower their prices dramatically to be able to compete with supermarkets.
So there's competition with places in France that's the problem, especially for the south of England, no?
I don't think so. You're always going to get a bit of smuggling when that sort of process arises. But the honest truth is that, you know, the vast bulk of what goes on in the UK is not affected by what happens in France. Maybe a bit of the southeast of England is or whatever, but the vast bulk of the rest of the British people aren't going to be travelling south to France every weekend to get their booze, because when they spent money on petrol, it's no longer cheaper. The key thing is, you know, access, availability and price. That's the key to this. And on all things, Britain has got very lax access and very, very low prices.
So you're a Tory calling for tax rises on alcohol?
Well, our recommendation was very simple. If you raise the price, I know it's not popular, and I'm not standing here saying it's popular, but we have a problem. It's not just binge drinking, it's high levels of cirrhosis. You've got young women in their 30s now in hospital dying of cirrhosis, the same for young men in their 20s. Used to be nobody under 60 had cirrhosis. We've got real health problems. We've got crime problems and violence problems, not just the binge drinking end of it, that's only the tip of the iceberg. And what I'm saying is, socially, we've got to sort this out. We have a major problem. And the second bit of our recommendation was that the money you make on that goes into treatment, so we can improve the quality of treatment and get money available to places like IDS and get kids off drugs and off alcohol, and it's got to be a good thing.
Thank you very much.